Hey guys, I am Game Advisor and welcome back to another Icarus video. Today we're going to be talking about the exotics that are currently in the game and which ones we personally have found to be extremely useful and which ones we have found to be not quite so useful. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Just a heads up, as of today, they did release all the new exotics, so we will be covering those at the end of the video and talking about the old ones first. Now, first up is going to obviously be your oxygen tank and your water canteen. These are two extremely powerful exotics to have, so everybody should be running them. The oxygen one is arguable for some of the shorter missions, but the water canteen is incredibly valuable and incredibly useful. I would recommend taking it on every single mission you go to. At least that's just my personal opinion. I have found it to be one of the most useful exotics in the game, and therefore I think it should be taken every single time. Now, as we move down the list, we have a few unique ones that are worth mentioning, and that's going to be first off the Campfire. The Campfire has a minus 25% energy transmutation resource cost. However, that's really not the big deal here. What we care about is the fact that it cannot be put out by storms. Therefore, the Campfire is very useful if you have to travel long distances without shelter. Again, we can just also put up a 1x1 and put the little Campfire inside that if we really need to, but at the end of the day, it's nice to have for the short missions where you have to travel long distances. Next up, let's go ahead and talk about all the different tools. Tools are extremely useful. However, in my personal opinion, the pick is by far the most useful tool. Now, the first pick is okay and all. It does basically just act as a better version of a stone pick, but not quite at the tier of a steel pick. So what I like to do is actually go ahead and focus on these higher up ones. You do not have to go all the way up to the new one, which obviously all these top tier tools that just came out today are going to be the very best for their categories, but if you're not using those, these below ones are perfectly fine. Personally, this pick is great because it acts as a steel pick. I'm pretty sure these ones do as well, although I personally have not used them. I do know this one does act as a steel pick, so you can mine your gold, you can mine your aluminum, you can mine your platinum, you can mine all that stuff from the first second you drop on in. You also get a pretty good mining yield, so in my opinion, I recommend it going that route. Now, as far as wood cutting axes, they are useful in general, but really not that useful. Now, if we're talking about the one up top that gives you minus 50% carry weight for your wood, which again, we'll talk about later, it is extremely powerful, but if you're not going to be running that one, it's really arguable whether or not you should even bring an axe, and I'll leave that up to you. I would say just bring them on maybe the long missions where you know you're going to need to chop a ton of trees. Now after that is the spears category. The spears category is kind of meh, and the reason I say this is because knives are essentially just short range spears that swing extremely fast, but can also go ahead and skin different things. Therefore, in my personal opinion, I would say if you have a choice between taking a knife or taking a spear, I would take the knife every single time. If you're going to take the knife, it kind of defeats the purpose of even taking a spear in the first place. You also have this little middle category right here, which is your Firewhackers, your repair hammers, and all that kind of stuff. These are honestly not that good. These are very cheap to make in game. There's really no big need to have that minus 22% action hold time. It's just not going to be necessary. Same with the Firewhacker. The minus 20% stamina consumed is nice and all, but generally speaking, unless you're running in like a group of 8 people, I would not recommend even touching this tree. It is relatively worthless for the most part. Now, moving over here to the bows category, we have 3 different bows that we're given options to take. Obviously, there is going to be one that stands out amongst the rest of the bows, and that is this one, because it really doesn't have any major negative effects, minus a little bit of charge speed. However, we do get 10% damage with bows, which is why it's good. The other 2 don't really give you that. They either give you negative crit damage, which is the one that I happen to have, which isn't a very good thing to have, or you have the one that has reduced charge speed and reduced movement speed. Considering how much I love my movement speed, I didn't want to take the movement speed penalty. So with that that being said, I think that these are debatable if you even take them. Personally, I would say just stay clear of the bows. Go ahead and just craft yourself a crummy one when you first spawn in, and if you really have just tons of extra money to spend and you really want to do a super fast speedrun mission, then yeah, go ahead and take the bows. That would be the only reason that I would personally take them though, is if you're trying to speedrun a mission, not if you're trying to just do a regular mission, because it doesn't take that long to get a bow in game. Now, as far as arrows goes, I personally have not played with them much, and that's because they have a chance to break. They also only come in small bundles, and personally, that's just not worth an inventory slot to me. I can just make stone arrows, and they're going to do fairly good amounts of damage. I can actually make bone arrows, which already hit just as hard as these ones already do. Now, these ones up here do hit a little bit extra hard, so if you're going to craft arrows, I would recommend you use these ones up top, because they only cost 10 to craft. They just have a high research cost of 500. Again, with all that being said, personally, I would just stay clear of the arrow tree and the bow tree. It's just not worth your time. Now, moving down over here into the armor tree, I think this is probably the single most useful section of the entire tech tree. That is because each one of these different exotics, when you have the full 5 set, will give you a significant amount of physical resistance, significant amount of cold and heat resistance, and a significant amount of exposure resistance. You also get more weight capacity with the 5 set, more stamina regen. The only negative effect is minus 10% swim speed, which really isn't that big of a deal. The important thing here is that you can take this set of armor into any biome and be good to go. It also gives you a lot of physical resistance, which is nothing to scoff at when you're fighting bears and wolves, especially when you're fighting a number of them at the same time. Therefore, my first recommendation for you guys is try to push over to the armor tree and probably go ahead and unlock these things relatively early on. I would say the only thing to maybe get before this would maybe be the picks, and be to get one of these higher up picks, so that you don't have to craft yourself a steel one when you want to get those higher tier materials. Now, down here we have a few little weird things, and these are basically just one-time use buffs. In my personal opinion, from what my friends have said and their experience with it and what I've seen them use them for, they're really not that useful. Their cost is just too high to make it worth taking. If I were you, I would just stay clear of this whole section at the moment until it gets rebalanced. It feels like there's just not enough in here to make it worth actually taking these different little injections or vaccines or whatever that you want to call them, that give you these little buffs that do last quite a while if you get down to the end ones. I mean, 21,000 seconds is a very long time. That's almost an entire mission in most cases. But nonetheless, it's just really not that big of a deal when it costs 750 credits to craft and 250 exotics. Now, over here is the last thing we have before we move on to the new items, which is going to be the different modules. Personally, I highly recommend the mass dampener module. You're going to be running around a lot in this game, and mass dampener modules are cheap and easy to get right out the get-go. You can carry 2 of them if you have the right suit, which gives you a total of 10% increased move speed. However, if you don't go for the mass dampener module, I would personally recommend you skip the falling damage and go straight down here to the patcher modules and get the patcher 2 module. This is because it's going to give you +5 suit inventory slots. This is great for farming missions when you have a ton of things you're carrying. However, this doesn't increase your carry weight, so you have to be conscious of that whenever you're using these different modules. There is also the add lift module, which will give you +5 kilograms of weight capacity, but again, I would personally rather have the inventory slots, or even more so, I'd rather have the move speed. This is up to you guys what you want to do, but there is one thing I want to note here, and that is currently that the player tracker module does not actually work and is just a default mechanic within the game. At some point, I'm imagining they're going to turn this on so that you'll have to have it in order to see the visual map. You can also place waypoints, and you can see where player waypoints are on the map. At that stage, I would then say this is actually very, very useful. But until then, it currently does nothing in the game, so just go ahead and skip it. Quick note here, I do want to say you can take these oxygen and ration packs for speed runs, But if you're not doing it for a speed run and you're trying to get the best time, I would just stay clear of all these. The buffs just really aren't enough to warrant an inventory slot when you're spawning into a mission. Okay, now let's go ahead and go over all the new exotic items and my personal opinions on them before I've had the chance to actually go ahead and use them all. If we do feel like we've messed up on one of these, I will come back in and I will let you guys know in the comments down below, so keep an eye on that later down the road. So first off, we have these farming packs. I'm honestly not 100% sure what the big use in these are. In my opinion, I would say the only one that looks very useful is going to be the mushroom farming pack. And that's because currently there is no mushrooms in the game. I don't know why they have not put mushrooms in, but they still haven't done it. So for now, they've given us the mushroom exotic, and if you really want mushrooms for some reason, which really is not necessary, you can buy a usable crafting item that you can probably only use once inside your mission in order to be able to get yourself some mushrooms. So at least they're technically in the game in some way, but personally, I would just stay clear of all these because farming right now is still pretty useless. Now, moving down here to some of the more unique ones, we've got the exotic furnace. This is one I would actually say is probably going to be very good. I am 99% sure you do not have to use the comet coal in order to fuel these. You can use normal stuff, but the fact that you can make a furnace and start out with a furnace is incredibly useful. I cannot tell you how many times I've spent so much time grinding out all the resources for a furnace, and if this qualifies as a steel furnace, meaning like the concrete tier 2 furnace that can smelt down steel, then this would be even better. I have a feeling though this is only going to count as the basic one, so I will let you guys know when I find out. Just keep that in mind that it could go either way, and check the comments if you want to figure out which way it goes. The MXC crate is honestly kind of garbo. It is literally just a storage bin. I don't see a reason to take this with you. I don't see a benefit in it at this point in time. So unless they make it in some way where you're able to put items into it and then take the whole crate in, and the crate has all the inventory in it, so you could bring a ton of consumables and one of every tool and all the armor and the different modules, then it could be useful. But until then, at the moment, I would just say go ahead and pass on this item. Alrighty, now we have the new backpacks they've added. Personally, this first one's the best one in my opinion. These are very cheap to make, so I highly recommend you get them very quickly. They do not cost much to get to, but 5% move speed, 6 inventory slots, which is the same that you're going to get from a regular backpack anyways, but nonetheless 6 inventory slots, 25% fall resistance, 50% chance to avoid sprains when taking fall damage, and minus 50% sprain duration on yourself. To me, for this cheap price, this is an absolute must have and must take with you. Now down here we do have two different options, which is the Gatherers and Archers backpack. The Gatherers I think is probably going to be the second most useful because it can be used on any long-term mission. You're going to have to do a lot of mining, a lot of wood cutting, or anything of the sort. This is negative 45% carry weight for both of those, plus 6 inventory slots. That means you can carry 45% more ore or wood back to your base when you have to go get it before you have to make that trip back, reducing the total amounts of trips and saving yourself some time. The last one is the Archer's backpack. This gives you 6 inventory slots again, which is again just a nice bonus, it's whatever, plus 25% reload speed for your bows, so again could be very useful if there's ever like a boss fight you're going to be doing or something like that. It gives you more aim speed and arrow speed. Arrow speed and aim speed are not that big a deal to me personally. It's more so about that reload speed. I would only take this if you're fighting a boss. Rarely is reload speed very important unless you're fighting a bear and you're trying to olay it and get multiple shots off, but at the end of the day, I would just go ahead and take the survival backpack over this one in just about every case. Now, the last items I want to talk about are the new tools. I'm just going to be straight with you guys. These things are strong. These are very strong, but they cost an insane amount of exotics. These are like end game tools. Like you are done with all your missions and you're just going to go farm exotics to get these. They are very powerful and they do a lot of impactful effects. So real quick, I'm going to go over them. The new axe gives you negative 50% carry weight of wood while you have it out. Might as well carry this thing out. It's probably one of, if not the least impactful of the new tools, but nonetheless, my minus 50% carry weight for wood is still nothing to scoff at. After that is minus 50% over encumbrance penalty. That is huge. Absolutely huge. You also get a 148% yield from mining. As many of you probably know that are watching this video, mining ore in this game is tedious and boring and takes forever, at least in my experience and many people who I've talked to's experience. Therefore, this is probably the single biggest time saver item in the entire game. You can load up your entire inventory with iron, copper, stone, whatever you want, and get a negative 50% to your over encumbrance penalty, meaning you can still move even if there's a bad storm outside. This thing is absolutely massive. If you can get it, I highly recommend you pick it up. This is a big, big upgrade item. Now the spear, I'm going to personally have to test out a little bit, but I'm guessing once again, it's gonna fall short when we compare it to the knife. And that's just because of the cost. If I have a choice between spending 1400 exotics on this versus over here on the knife, which we'll talk about here in just a second, I personally would rather have the knife. The spear's biggest and most useful effect is the chance to slow on hit and the 10% chance to immobilize on hit. I'm going to say that we don't know for sure if this item is good or bad yet until we get the chance to test it. However, I'm going to say it is probably just not worth the cost at this point in time. And then lastly is the new knife, which is absolutely massive. If you're anything like me, you get bit by wolves once in a while, and it is really annoying when you're out in the middle of a snow biome, having to make bandages in order to bandage your wounds. So what this does is it gives you a 100% chance to resist any wound. Therefore, it is literally a combat knife that gives you 225% yield whenever you skin something, which is already 25% higher than anything else that you're going to be able to get, unless you go ahead and craft the maximum tier things in game, which you're not going to do. This is going to be the best knife available to you. I would highly recommend you pick this up, and I would highly recommend you pick the pickup if you're going to be buying these expensive tools. I'm sorry, but the hatchet and the spear can wait. They are much lower priority than getting yourself these tools. These two tools, knife and especially the pick, are absolutely massive upgrades to their predecessors. So if you're gonna go for them, I'd recommend pick first, then the knife, and then you can get whatever else you want. Now, I will say before we go, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I just want to mention that when you're going through this tree, it is really up to you what you want to get. You do not have to go for armor. You do not have to go for the backpacks. You do not have to get a pick. You can just go get all the farming things if that's what you want to do. This is entirely subject to our opinion and our experience with the game. With all that being said, I'm Game Advisor. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like and comment down below if you have anything you want to let other players know about, maybe things you enjoyed or things that you think are best inside this tree, or maybe some interesting facts about the new equipment that just got added. With all that being said, one last time, thank you all so much for watching. I'm Game Advisor, and I'll see you next time.